Hi viewers. Retaliation was expected after Ukraine used US long range missiles to attack Russia. The retaliation has come with Moscow launching intercontinental ballistic missiles into Ukraine. But what is the course that the Russia Ukraine war is taking? The Federal's managing editor, Dakshina Murthy, who follows international affairs closely, is here to offer insights. Dakshin, my first question is Moscow had warned the US and its NATO allies for months against granting Ukraine permission to fire Western missiles. And now that it's happened, this is how Russia has responded. So, what do we make of this?
So this is basically along expected lines. Um, for Russia, the moment the US agreed or allowed Ukraine to use long-term or long-range missiles, you know, once they allowed it, so for Russia, all options then became open. So what Russia did first was it changed its nuclear doctrine. Now it has lowered the threshold, which means that Russia is now prepared for anything. And because this basically changes the contours of the war, allowing long range missiles into Russia changes the contours of the war because now Ukraine can attack any part of Russia or at least a major part of Russia, which was not possible earlier. And also, we are not talking of Ukrainian-made missiles. These are missiles made by either NATO countries or the US. So Putin is now very clearly saying that, look, you are directly in conflict with me. He's telling the US and NATO, you are directly in conflict with me. So it changes the entire landscape of the war.
Right. And you spoke about Russia's nuclear doctrine being updated. So, will the war see a nuclear escalation as a result of this, or is Putin just doing what he has to do, like, to strengthen his stance because, whatever the US has done?
I mean, I think all of us should really sincerely hope that Putin is just talking, he's being making noises or showing bravado, and he will actually not carry out his threat. Because if Putin really turns around and retaliates with any kind of a nuclear weapon, now that's going to really, it is going to have far-reaching consequences. So now, what did Russia do? What did Putin do to enable this? So far, so far, Russia's nuclear deterrence was very clearly that any nuclear armed state, which attacks Russia, was, seen as a kind of a threat that Russia would respond. Otherwise, Russia would not use its nuclear weapons. What it has done recently is that any country that is held by another country which is a nuclear power against Russia. So very clearly what Putin has in mind is Ukraine. If what is basically what the new doctrine is saying is if Ukraine is backed by any power, which is a nuclear power against Russia, then Russia is now free to use its nuclear weapons. So this is what has happened. And all the many of the NATO countries are nuclear armed. The US is nuclear armed. So what Putin is saying is, look, now all the bets are off, and Russia can retaliate with a nuclear weapon. So this change in the nuclear doctrine is, extremely dangerous, and it's very ominous.
Right. Now, Russia has said that a new US ballistic missile defense base in Poland will lead to an increase in the overall level of nuclear danger. But Poland says the threats from Russia actually strengthen the argument for NATO defenses. And the accusations are fine back and forth, but who is truly escalating the war here now?
It's very clearly the NATO countries and the US which are escalating the war. The reason for this is simple because if you go back about 20 years to 30 years, there was the George W. Bush administration, and after that, there was an attempt by the US to have its bases in the former Soviet provinces, right? So at that time, Russia objected to that and it was withdrawn. The US did not go through with its attempts to set up bases in countries that were formerly the Soviet provinces. Now, using this situation, the fact that Russia has now threatened to retaliate, the US is now using the situation and setting up a base in Poland. Okay, on the giving the reason that it is not a nuclear, it doesn't house any nuclear weapons. It is a conventional weapon defense base, but for Russia, this is very serious because any more, Poland is, that it's very, very close to Russia, and a US defense base there, it existentially threatens Russia. So,
Right. Mm.
really, who is escalating this whole issue?
Right. Uh, all said and done, one thing is that this escalation has been caused by Joe Biden. So once Trump is in charge, so can we expect the war to not escalate so much, or like will there be changes, or will there be a de-escalation? What could be the possibility?
If we take Trump for his word, this war is going to end in one day, the day he takes over as president. Even assuming that he was just being bombastically,
Hmm.
exaggerated, it should come down. But in the event that before Trump takes over, there is a huge escalation in the conflict, then it's going to be difficult for Trump to do that. So it's very crucial from now until Trump takes over, the
Hmm.
kind of trajectory that this war takes.
Right. Let's see how, like you said, what trajectory the war takes in the meantime. Thank you so much for your time, Daksh.